Evelyn Price sat on the hard bench at Dustmere Station with her wedding dress pulled tight around her knees, like fabric could hold her life together. The wind kept tossing prairie dust onto the white lace, turning it gray, one cruel pinch at a time. 3 days had passed. 72 hours of watching the tracks and the empty horizon, waiting for a man who never came. In her hands, she held the letter again. The paper had gone soft at the edges from being read too many times. The words inside promised everything a young woman could want in Wyoming territory. A husband, a home, a future that would not ask for pity. The letter had sounded so sure. It had called her, "My dearest Evelyn." It had said she would soon be Mrs. Thomas Hartley, mistress of a fine cattle ranch. It had made her believe she was not foolish for dreaming. Now it was only proof that someone had known how to lie in a way that felt like love. That morning, the telegraph operator had looked up at her with tired eyes and told her the truth. No Thomas Hartley. No ranch with that name. No record at all. Just a marriage swindle, like the ones whispered about in train towns and border places. The news had landed in her chest and stayed there, heavy and cold. Jedediah Burke, the station master, came near with careful steps, like she might bite or break. His boots scraped the warped boards of the platform. He had the kind of face the West gave men, weathered and honest, with pity lines around the eyes. "Miss Price," he said, "the westbound comes in an hour. I could arrange you a ticket back east. Sometimes the railroad makes allowances for situations." Evelyn lifted her chin, even though her stomach was hollow and her head felt light. She could already hear the whispers back home in Philadelphia. Poor Evelyn. Always dreaming too big. Always reaching for something she did not deserve. "I'm not going back," she said. Burke shifted, as if the word surprised him. "Miss, you can't sit here forever. Dustmere ain't safe for a woman alone." "I said I'm not going back." He pulled a silver dollar from his vest, for food. "Mrs. Holloway runs a boarding house 2 streets over. Clean place." Quote. The coin gleamed like an accusation. Charity. Evelyn hated how badly she needed it. She touched the empty purse at her hip and lied without blinking. "I have money." Burke set the coin on the bench beside her anyway. "Western hospitality," he said softly and walked away. Evelyn stared out at the sharp blue sky. It was too big. Too bright, too uncaring. In Philadelphia, the sky always felt close, like a ceiling. Here, it felt like it could swallow her whole and never notice. Small boots thumped on the boards behind her. Evelyn turned. A little girl stood near the edge of the platform. She looked 7 or 8, maybe. Her dark hair was dusty. Her dress was old and patched. And the boots on her feet were too big, like she had stepped into someone else's life and refused to step back out. "You're the bride," the girl said. It was not a question. Evelyn's throat tightened. "I'm nobody's bride." The child tilted her head, studying her like a person studies a broken thing to see where it cracked. "You've been sitting here 3 days. The whole town's talking." "Mrs. Holloway says you're touched in the head. Mr. Giles thinks you're running from the law." She paused. "I think you're just sad." Evelyn tried to sound sharp, but it came out tired. "What would you know about sad?" The girl stepped closer. Her boots clunked like small hammers. "I know sad. My mama knew sad, too, before she died. She used to sit like you're sitting, all straight. Like if you hold yourself just right, you won't fall apart." The words hit Evelyn so cleanly she had to look away. "Where's your father?" she asked. "Working," the girl said. "Always working. That's why I came to find you." She reached out a hand, dirt under her nails, brave as daylight. "Will you marry my daddy instead?" For a heartbeat, the world held still. The tracks, the sky, the dust hanging in the air. The question sounded impossible, but it also sounded like a rope tossed to a drowning person. Evelyn let out a shaky breath. "Child, you can't just ask strangers to marry your father." "Why not?" the girl said. "You need a husband. He needs a wife. I need a mama." Quote. Evelyn stared at her, stunned by the simple logic and the quiet hunger behind it. "What's your name?" "Clara. Clara Callahan. My daddy's Samuel Callahan." Clara's voice rushed now, like she was afraid Evelyn might disappear. "He can't braid hair. He burns everything he cooks. He forgets to talk for days sometimes. But he's good. He don't drink like Mr. Watson. He don't hit like Mr. Briggs used to hit Mrs. Briggs." Evelyn swallowed. "Clara, sweetheart, marriage isn't about fixing cooking." Clara reached into her pocket and held out a crust of bread wrapped in cloth. "Eat. You're hungry." Evelyn's pride cracked right down the middle. She took the bread with trembling fingers and bit into it. It was hard and stale, but it was food. Her stomach clenched like it had been waiting for permission to live. Clara nodded like a judge. "See? We got food. We got stew. Daddy shot an elk last week." Before Evelyn could form another careful sentence, Clara grabbed her carpet bag. For such a small girl, she was strong. She started dragging it toward the stairs. "Come on," Clara said. "You can decide after you meet him, but even if you don't marry him, you can stay for supper." Evelyn stood with legs that ached from sitting and a heart that ached from everything else. She looked down the tracks, where the east waited with its safe shame. Then she looked at Clara, in oversized boots, carrying a stranger's bag like it belonged to her. "How far is your ranch?" Evelyn heard herself ask. Clara's face lit up like sunrise. 3 miles north. Daddy's gonna be surprised." Evelyn let out a small laugh that sounded rusty, like a gate that had not opened in years. She stepped off the platform and followed the child into the wide Wyoming light, not knowing if she was walking toward trouble or rescue, only knowing she could not sit on that bench 1 more hour. The town of Dustmere watched them as they walked. Evelyn felt every stare like a stone thrown without a hand showing. Men leaned on posts outside the saloon. Women paused near the general store windows. Even the dog seemed to know she was the bride who had been left behind. Clara tugged her forward as if the whole world could be outrun. "Don't mind them," she said. "They stare because they got nothing better to do." Her boots clomped on the dirt road, too big for her feet, but she walked like she owned the ground. Evelyn held her dress up with one hand so it would not drag. The wind kept pulling at her veil like it wanted to take it away. She let it. She was tired of holding on to things that did not want her. "Your father knows you're out here?" Evelyn asked. "He knows I go where I need to go," Clara said. "He don't like it, but he knows." They left the last buildings behind and followed a wagon trail into open grassland. The prairie rolled out in every direction, waves of grass moving with the wind. Far away, the mountains wore snow on their heads, even though spring had warmed the lower land. Evelyn felt small in that wide space. In Philadelphia, there was always a wall close by, a street, a roofline. Out here, there was only sky and the steady hum of the wind, as if the land was always speaking. Clara glanced up at her. "You're not gonna run, are you?" "I'm walking with you," Evelyn said. "That's not what I asked." Evelyn looked down at the child's face. There was hope there, bright and dangerous. "No," Evelyn said softly. "I'm not going to run." Clara's shoulders dropped, like she had been holding her breath for 3 days, too. "Good," she said. "Daddy don't like surprises, but he likes help." After a while, Clara pointed ahead. "That's home." The ranch sat low against the land, built from logs and hard work, a porch wrapped around part of the house. A barn stood nearby. Its red paint faded like dried blood. Smoke drifted from the chimney, and Evelyn felt a strange relief at that simple sign of life. Clara slowed near the steps. For the first time, her boldness shook a little. "Maybe I should tell him first," she whispered, "so he don't get mad." Evelyn's heart tightened. "Clara, I don't want to cause trouble in your home." "You're not trouble," Clara said fast. "You're a solution." Before Evelyn could answer, Clara pushed the door open. "Daddy," she called, loud enough for the whole prairie, "I brought company." The room smelled of wood smoke and something burned. It was a plain space, kitchen and sitting room together, but clean in a strict way. Everything had a place, as if order was the only thing keeping the world from falling apart. A man came out from the back room, and Evelyn stopped breathing for a moment. Samuel Callahan was tall and broad, built like he belonged to the land. His hair was too long. His beard needed trimming. His clothes were worn but clean. His hands were scarred from work, but the way he moved them was careful. Then his eyes landed on Evelyn. They were gray, like storm clouds that never fully emptied. They held confusion, then sharp alarm, and then something that looked like fear. "Clara," he said, voice rough and low. "Who is this?" Quote, "This is Miss Price," Clara announced, proud as if she had brought home a prize calf. "She's staying for supper." Samuel's gaze tightened on Evelyn. "Miss Price," he repeated slowly. "The bride from the station." Evelyn felt heat rise in her face. Her shame returned like a slap. "Mr. Callahan," she began. "I'm sorry, your daughter was concerned. I can leave at once." Clara cut in before her father could speak. "She's hungry," she said. "We got elk stew." Samuel's jaw clenched. "Clara, you walked 3 miles. "In these boots," Clara said, as if that settled it. Samuel's eyes dropped to Clara's feet, then to Evelyn's dusty dress. Then back to Evelyn's face. The anger he might have had seemed to turn inward instead, like he did not know where to put it. "You'll stay for supper," he said at last. It was not warm. It was not gentle, but it was not cruel either. It sounded like a man making a decision because the world had already made too many decisions for him. Clara's face lit up. She grabbed Evelyn's hand and pulled her toward a side room. "That's Daddy's welcome," she whispered. "He just don't dress it up." The room Clara led her into felt like it had once belonged to a woman. Evelyn could tell by what was missing. Empty hooks on the wall. A space where a mirror had been. A faint scent that reminded her of lavender, like a memory that refused to leave. Clara pointed to a wash basin. "You can wash up. Daddy don't like dirt tracked through the house." Evelyn poured water into the basin and washed her hands and face. The dust came off in gray streams, and for the first time in days, she saw herself clearly. A tired woman. A frightened woman. A woman who still stood straight even when she had no reason to. Clara sat on the bed, swinging her booted feet. "This was Mama's room," she said, then added quickly, "It's spare now. Daddy sleeps in the barn most nights. Says the house feels too full of empty." Evelyn's throat tightened. "Your mother died." 2 winters ago," Clara said. "Fever." Evelyn dried her hands. "I'm sorry." Clara shrugged like she was used to carrying heavy things. Daddy still talks to her sometimes. He just don't talk to people much. When Evelyn came back into the main room in her plain blue dress, Samuel stood at the stove, stirring a pot like it might explode. Clara sat at the table, watching him like she was guarding him. "It smells good," Evelyn said, even though it smelled a little scorched. "It's edible," Samuel said. "Usually." Clara nodded. "Mostly." Evelyn surprised herself. "May I help?" Samuel looked at her like she had asked to pick up his rifle. "No," he said too fast. Then he cleared his throat. "You're a guest." "I know kitchens," Evelyn said quietly, "and I haven't had anything to do but wait and worry. Please." Something in Samuel's face shifted like he did not know how to refuse a kind offer without feeling weak. He stepped back, stiff. "If you insist." Evelyn tasted the stew, then found salt, pepper, and dried herbs hanging from the rafters. "Thyme," she murmured. "And sage." "Mama grew them," Clara said. "Daddy keeps them even though he don't use them." Evelyn stirred, added herbs, and watched the stew change. It smelled warmer. It smelled like someone cared. When they sat to eat, Clara took a spoonful and her eyes went wide. "This is how Mama made it," she whispered. Samuel froze. His spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully, as if it might break. Then he stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "I should check the horses," he said, voice too tight. He left, closing the door with control that did not match the storm of feeling Evelyn saw in his eyes. Clara's face crumpled. "I always say the wrong thing." Evelyn reached across the table and covered Clara's small hand. "You said the right thing," she whispered. Sometimes the right thing hurts the most. The sky darkened early that night. Wind began to rise, pushing against the house. The first drops of rain hit the roof like thrown pebbles. Then the storm came hard, rattling the windows and making the logs groan. Samuel returned, wet from the rain, and stood by the door as if he did not know where to put himself. "Storm's coming strong," he said. "You'll stay tonight. It's not safe to walk back." Evelyn opened her mouth to argue, to insist she would not be a burden, to protect herself with pride, but pride had already left her on that station bench. She looked at Clara's hopeful face, at Samuel's tense shoulders, at the warm lamplight fighting the dark. "Just tonight," Evelyn said. Samuel nodded once, sharp and relieved at the same time. "Just tonight," he agreed. And as the storm howled outside, Evelyn felt something else start to build inside her, quiet and strange. Not romance, not safety, a choice. One she might have to make again when morning came. Morning came clean and bright, like the storm had washed the whole world and hung it in the sun. Evelyn woke under a heavy quilt, stitched with rings that held together, piece after piece, like someone had believed broken things could still become whole. From the kitchen she heard Clara's voice, sharp and happy. "Daddy, you're burning the eggs again?" Evelyn stepped into the main room and saw Samuel at the stove, staring at the pan like it had betrayed him. Clara sat at the table, her hair wild, her eyes bright. Samuel looked up and went still, like he had forgotten how to have a woman in his house at dawn. "Good morning," Evelyn said. His throat worked once. "Miss Price." Clara grinned. "See, you stayed." Evelyn moved to the stove without thinking. "May I?" Quote. Samuel stepped back right away, almost like he was grateful. "Please." Evelyn saved what she could, scraped the worst parts away, added what the pan needed, and made the eggs taste like something meant for people who wanted to live. After breakfast, she braided Clara's hair, slow and careful, and Clara sat very still like the braids were a promise that life could be steady again. That day, Evelyn did not go back to the station. She worked. She cleaned the corners that grief had let go dusty. She put order back into drawers. She helped Samuel with small ranch things he did not speak about, like mending a gate that had been hanging wrong for months. In the evening, she opened his ledgers and saw the truth hiding under tired numbers. The ranch was behind. Not ruined yet, but leaning toward trouble. When a neighbor rode by and offered to take Evelyn back to town, Evelyn heard herself speak before she could second-guess it. "She's working here," Samuel said, stiff and flat. Evelyn lifted her chin. "For a while," she added, because she needed Samuel to hear it too. "I can help with the house and the books." Samuel's eyes met hers, storm gray, searching. He did not say thank you. He did not say welcome. He simply nodded once, and in that nod was a kind of agreement he did not know how to put into words. Days became a rhythm. Evelyn made breakfast. Samuel did the early chores. Clara followed Evelyn like a shadow, learning letters and manners and how to fold towels into clean squares. Samuel spoke little, but he began to sit at the table more. He began to let his eyes stay in the room instead of escaping to the door. Then Clara got sick. It started small, a cough, a warm forehead. By night, it turned into fever. Clara's skin burned hot and dry. Her little body shook. She called for her mother in a voice that was not fully awake. Samuel paced like a trapped man. His face went pale under the lamplight. He kept saying the doctor was too far, the night was too dark, the road was too rough, and none of those words hid what was really in his chest. He was afraid Clara would die the way Sarah had. Evelyn sat by the bed and kept Clara drinking water in tiny sips. She cooled the child's forehead with cloths. When Samuel tried to run outside, Evelyn caught his arm. "She needs you here," she said. "I can't watch this again," he whispered. "Yes, you can," Evelyn said, and her voice did not shake. "You will." Clara's hand found Samuel's and held tight. "Daddy," she murmured. "Tell me a story." Samuel froze. Then his shoulders bent like a man carrying a load too long. He sat down and began to talk. He told Clara about Sarah coming to Wyoming in a dress too fine for ranch dirt. He told how she learned to work, how she learned to laugh, how she made the house feel like more than logs and smoke. His voice was rough at first, but then it found a path, and the words came like water through a crack in stone. Near dawn, Clara's fever broke. Her breathing eased. Her face softened. She slept like a child who had fought hard and won. Samuel sagged in the chair, still holding her hand. He looked at Evelyn like he had not known he could ever feel relief again. "You stayed," he said. "Of course I stayed," Evelyn answered. He swallowed. "Thank you." It was the first time his gratitude sounded like something real he meant to give. A week later, Trouble rode up to the ranch in a wagon, wearing a smile that never warmed his eyes. Marcus Briggs. He spoke about taxes and deadlines like he enjoyed the sound of fear. He demanded $200 by the end of the month, or he would start foreclosure. $200 might as well have been the sky. When Briggs left, Samuel stood in the yard like a man hearing his own life crack. "We'll find it," Evelyn said, though her stomach turned when she saw how tight Samuel's jaw was. Evelyn did what she always did when fear grew too big. She worked. She made a plan out of thin air. She talked to women in town. She listened. She learned what people needed and could not get. She turned milk and berries and root vegetables into things that could sell. Butter, jam, pickles, apple butter rich and thick. Clara helped with labels, proud and serious. Neighbors brought jars, sugar, and cloth without asking for anything back. They had all seen Briggs circle for years, and they were tired of it. The money came slow, but it came. Then the letter arrived. It was from a law firm back east. Evelyn opened it with shaking fingers and read the words twice before her brain accepted them. An inheritance. $200. The exact amount. Samuel turned away from her like he did not want her to see his face. "You can go back east now," he said quietly. "Start over right." Evelyn stepped closer. "Is that what you want?" His voice came out rough. "It's what you should want." Clara appeared in the doorway like a small storm. "Are you leaving?" Evelyn looked at the child, then at the man who had offered her a bed in a storm and said thank you like it cost him something. "No," Evelyn said. Samuel's head snapped toward her. "I'm not leaving," she repeated. "Not unless I'm being sent away." Samuel stared, and in his eyes she saw fear and hope tied together so tight they could not be pulled apart without breaking. "I want you to stay," he said at last, like the truth hurt to say. "But not because we need your money, not because you got nowhere else." Evelyn's voice stayed calm, even though her heart did not. "Then we use the money to save the ranch," she said, "and I become a full partner, my name beside yours, not a guest, not hired help." Samuel's breath caught. Clara burst out, "Say yes, Daddy." Samuel looked at his daughter, then at Evelyn. Something in him shifted, the way ice shifts when the thaw begins. "Partners," he said. Evelyn took his hand. "Partners." They paid Briggs the next day. Evelyn went with Samuel and watched Briggs count the money with sour eyes. He left angry, but he left. For the first time in months, the ranch felt like it could breathe. That was when the past came riding back. Thomas Hartley. He was real after all, polished and smug on a fine horse, smiling like he owned the world. He came to Dustmere saying he had come for his bride, as if 3 days on a station bench was a small mistake that could be fixed with a hat tip. Evelyn's blood turned cold. Hartley spoke sweetly in front of others and poisoned every word with insult. He hinted that Evelyn's honor was broken. He hinted that Samuel had stolen what was not his. Samuel stepped in front of Evelyn, silent and dangerous. Hartley smiled wider. "A wedding ring makes a lie respectable," he said. "Truth without one is just trouble." Evelyn felt something snap clean inside her. "I would rather be poor and judged in this house," she said, loud enough for the yard and the porch and the listening town. Then be safe in your lies. Hartley's eyes hardened. You'll regret this. He rode away, but his shadow stayed. That night, half of Dustmere came to the ranch, not to gossip, but to stand guard with their presence. They had heard Hartley talking in town. They had heard the way he twisted stories. Reverend Morrison looked at Samuel and Evelyn and said what everyone was thinking. If you mean to build a life together, he said, make it plain. Don't let a snake write the story for you. Samuel's hands shook, but he lifted his head. He turned to Evelyn and did not hide behind silence. I love you, he said. Not the way I love Sarah. That was different, but this is real, and it's here, and I'm tired of being afraid of it. Evelyn's eyes burned. She did not answer with a speech. She kissed him. It was quick and fierce and honest, and when she pulled back, Samuel looked like a man who had been holding his breath for 2 years. Then Clara called from the window, Are you done yet? Because people are staring. The whole yard laughed, and the laughter felt like sunlight after a long winter. They married that same day in the church, simple and fast, with Clara standing between them like a small guard of honor. The town filled the benches, not because it was proper, but because they wanted to witness something good. Evelyn wore her blue dress. Samuel wore a clean shirt. Clara held their hands like she was joining them herself. For a few hours, it felt like peace. Then, the fire started. It hit the barn in the middle of the night, fast and hungry. The smell of smoke ripped Evelyn awake. Samuel was already running outside, shouting Clara's name. Flames climbed the wood like they had been waiting. The horses! Clara screamed. Samuel ran toward the barn without thinking. Evelyn ran after him. Heat punched her face. Sparks flew like angry insects. Inside the barn, the horses screamed and kicked, wild with fear. Samuel fought the stall doors with his shoulder, his hands, his whole body. Get out! He yelled at Evelyn. Evelyn grabbed a rope and pulled a terrified mare toward the opening. The horse fought, nearly throwing her, but Evelyn held on with every ounce of stubborn strength she had left in her life. She got the mare out and did not stop. Then she went back. Samuel was still inside, freeing the last horse, smoke rolling around him like a storm. Evelyn threw water on his shirt when she saw it start to smolder. Together, they dragged the last horse out, just as the roof cracked and fell in with a roar that shook the ground. They hit the dirt hard, coughing, shaking, alive. The barn burned to ash behind them, but the animals were safe. Samuel pulled Evelyn into his arms like he was afraid she might vanish. His voice broke on her name. You could have died, he whispered. So could you, Evelyn said, and I wasn't going to let you. The town came running with buckets and lanterns. They saved the house. They saved what they could. When dawn arrived, it rose over blackened wood and steaming ash. Evelyn stood beside Samuel and Clara and watched the smoke drift away. This was not the life she had dreamed about on the train. This was harder. This was real. And it was theirs. 2 weeks later, the whole county showed up for a barn raising. Men lifted beams. Women brought food. Children ran between boots and boards like they were part of the work. The new barn rose in one long day, strong and plain, built from community and stubborn love. That night, when the last hammering stopped and the sky turned dark, Samuel handed Evelyn a letter. My dearest Evelyn, it began. He had written it that morning, like he had finally learned how to say what mattered while he still could. He told her she had made the house feel warm again. He told her she had taught him that loving again was not betrayal. He told her he did not write to Sarah anymore because he did not need letters to nowhere when love was sitting beside him. Evelyn read it by lamplight, tears falling onto the page, not from shame, but from something softer. Outside, Clara caught fireflies in a jar and held them up like a lantern. Look, she said, falling stars. Evelyn smiled at the child in oversized boots, who had changed everything with one brave question. On a station bench, Evelyn had once waited for a promise that was never real. Now she stood on a porch beside a man who had almost forgotten how to hope, and a little girl who never stopped hoping, and a home that had been tested by fire and still held. The wrong train had delivered her to the right place, And this time, she was not waiting anymore.